with Shake and Bacons. Do you guys remember Brightburn? Remember when I did that movie? The Boys is like Brightburn, but better executed. So for anyone not in the know, The Boys is an Amazon Prime show, which is another take on the what would happen if a superhero or a group of superheroes was bad angle for a story. And it's based on the comic series The Boys as well. And it tells the story of a young guy named Huey, whose girlfriend gets killed in an accident by a superhero named A-Train in this alternate reality to ours where superheroes are owned by Vought, which is this massive corporate entity that is very true to life. I have to say, for other corporate entities, and showing, how these mega corporations manipulate the government and ordinary people in order to increase their profit or cover up / get away with, heinous crimes. And they aid and abet the fallacies and vices of their superheroes and things like that, and push their own agendas. And so Huey, after losing his girlfriend in a fit of vengeance, joins a team of people that are dedicated to taking down the Supes, which is what they call them in this universe, which includes Karl Urban as Butcher, the Frenchman, Mother's Milk, and eventually another superhero named Kimiko. And I'm not going to go into detail because I'm not going to spoil the series for you guys if you're interested in watching it. Huey also befriends and starts dating one of the newer Supes, Starlight, through whose eyes we get to experience some of what it's really like at Vought in The Seven, which is like their riff on the Justice League. And the story at the end sets up this new season and series revolving around Vought and their main baddie, Homelander, as well as the drama of each character. And there are a lot of characters and there's a lot of drama. And the series is definitely better than Brightburn. I think the concept itself, as I discussed in Brightburn, of a superhero going bad or a superhero acting in their own self-interest versus the interest of the majority of the people, is truly where the series shines. And I think it adds this really interesting corporate angle to it. Because unlike in Brightburn or in other, concepts with this kind of idea, it's not the person or the quote-unquote hero or the villain that's just turning bad on their own, but it's actually a corporation that is actively swaying and creating and influencing people for their own benefit because they have to meet. Like there's a scene where they're discussing their profit margins or whatever it was with their stakeholders. And I was like, of course they're going to have a corporate discussion with stakeholders because that's the kind of show that this show is. And I think that they do that really well. And the moments where they focus on that dynamic and what this corporation is doing and what the Supes are doing with this corporation, I think that is truly where the series really, really shines. And it's very interesting to watch. There are some great effects. I think the few fights we get between superheroes are fascinating to watch. Just the different takes on their powers, how they interact with each other, the sheer amount of hierarchy that there is. Homelander, of course, is the big baddie, and he's just virtually impregnable. And the way that they rule and command the Seven and command to a degree the corporation, or how the corporation commands them, and just the interplay there is very, very fascinating to watch. And the effects are great. There's a high production value because it come from Amazon. I will say that the whole series is shot with this kind of gray or sepia filter, and there's definitely some inconsistencies. I actually thought that my TV was broken as I was watching the first few episodes because the lighting for certain scenes was just going up and down. And I don't know if it was just maybe the way it was shot or if there was fluctuations in processing, but there's definitely some oddities. And there are some things that they 100% missed. So in episode 4, there is, in the middle of this what is supposed to be a really tense scene, and this fly just randomly buzzes on screen in the middle of this scene, and you could tell it is not there on purpose. Like, they left it in. So somebody had a fly, like a straight up house fly, fly across the camera that they're filming with, and it's just like and they just left it in. And we rewound to double check. I want to say we rewound like 3 times because we could not stop laughing. I was crying because if you're watching the episode, it's at 46:20, so 46 minutes 20 seconds. As soon as he says, "How do you know so much about the Spice Girls?" this random fly just comes on the screen. It's like buzz, buzz, mothers. It's so like, so it's so strange because I feel like this is a really good example of how I feel about this series, because there are some things it does so well, and then you have other things that are just so jarring and they don't fit. Like this fly, like the production overall was really well done. And then you have things that are jarring, like this random freaking fly buzzing across the screen, and you can tell it's not there on purpose. And it's a really good example of, I think, overall, like what this show is. You can also tell with this show that most of the actors really gave it their all. I think they all really liked the premise of the story. I think by far Jack Quaid is the best actor in the whole thing, which surprises me because I normally like Karl Urban. I think he's good in most of what he does, but I think Jack Quaid steals every scene that he's in, and other actors like Anthony Starr as Homelander really nailed the creepy sociopathic vibe of that character, and I thought Elizabeth Shue was brilliant as Stillwell, the ruthless Vought corporate. But some of the actors just can't quite bring it, and it makes watching many scenes fairly painful, which is unfortunate. Part of what I will say is I think maybe it's not even the actors so much as it is the writing. And the writing is really what tanks this show for me, because it was so cliched and it was poorly done. I think the actors were genuinely, like Keith Urban, not Keith Urban, Jesus, what is this, country music? Like Karl Urban, he was really trying to deliver the lines, but and this goes not just for him, but for a lot of the other actors and actresses. They were trying their best with the lines, but the lines themselves were so poor that they are just not believable, despite how hard the actors are selling them. And Butcher's lines in particular, Karl Urban's lines, were so hacky to the point that he is not believable as a character. He is like a living cliche. And the character development that you would expect to be observing in a series as people change, other than Huey, who has a good character arc, every other character development is completely unbelievable because of how they were written. Some of them, like Starlight's, her arc was written as far too slow and naive and inconsistent with her morals and everything she keeps preaching about to herself and to others. And then you have a character arc that the Frenchman, Frenchie, goes through, which is also completely unbelievable. You have a brief dialogue in one of the earlier episodes, and then by the end of the episode, Frenchie is a totally different character. Like, completely different character from who he was set up as being through the entire beginning of the series. And it's just, it would be a believable arc if it was written properly. And bear in mind, I'm saying this, I haven't read the comics. I'm just saying this as a viewer of the show. And with that expectation, I'm expecting the show, who is trying to bring in a new audience, people that may not have read the comics, such as myself. I'm speaking as one of those people, and as one of those people, I'm telling, like, the writing is just not there. The story development overall, not just the character development, is not that fulfilling or engaging, because the story arc you go through is Huey wants vengeance. And you kind of go through that arc. It completes itself for the most part. And I don't want to spoil anything, but then there's a cliffhanger, of course, at the last episode, in the last few minutes, to try and keep you to keep watching. But the cliffhanger is just find out what happens next with this drama. And that is not compelling enough for me to want to keep watching. I would have wanted to keep watching this show for the superhero aspect of it and the villain aspect and what they were doing with the interplay between is it really a hero or a villain type thing. And that's not what they rely on at the end to try and get you to come back for season 2. By the end of season 1, there is so much more of an emphasis on the drama and the interrelationships between the characters. Oh, he loves her. He slept with my wife. I blame you for this person's death and I want revenge. And it feels more like a cliched drama television show, like a daytime drama show, than anything else. I kind of felt like, do you guys remember that really old show, Revenge? I felt like I was watching Revenge more than I was watching a commentary on superheroes. There are so many plot threads and characters that are thrown into every single episode that you forget that people exist. There are many moments where they would cut back to the Deep or A-Train or Starlight or someone else, and I'd be like, oh my god, I totally forgot about them. And then every episode introduces more characters and more plot lines. So the issue only gets worse, and as the series continues and you get more and more of those things, that focus becomes all on the drama, and that's what they try and use to hook you into the second season. And that is what I do not like. And because of that drama, there are a lot of cliches in the writing as well. There are a few surprising twists that they threw in. But for the most part, it's very predictable. You can tell exactly where it's going. And the pacing is another huge issue with the predictability. Because you can see where it's going, but the pacing is uneven. So, for example, by the time I got to episode 5, out of the 8-episode season, so over halfway through the season, I still had no explanation for who some of the main characters were or what their primary motivation was, because the show does not tell me. The show will not tell you. That's over halfway through the season. And instead of developing or focusing on the storylines and the plot lines and the characters we already have, the show just keeps throwing more in there. And when you dilute the story like that, you lose the quality. You know, it's like Ron Swanson says, don't half-ass multiple things. You got a whole-ass one thing. Or I'm paraphrasing. I probably just messed up that quote, but you guys get what I mean. They're trying to do too much with too many characters, and it is to the detriment overall of the story. Another big issue that I have with this series, and I'm going to say right off the bat, is I don't think I'm a prude, and I don't think I'm that sensitive to violence. I'm not good with gore, but I'll just, you know, shut my eyes. I won't watch it if it's on the screen. But this series is extremely shocking in content to the point where I think it crossed a line at multiple points throughout the series, and they know that, and they rub your face in it. There are, and I'm gonna warn you, for anyone who may have any kind of traumatic past, or you may have, I know people make fun of the word trigger, but honestly, if you have a trigger, there are multiple rape and sexual assault scenes in this series. There is mother fetishing. There are excessive amounts of gore, like lingering shots on disintegrating brains and spines and jaws, and more. And it reminded me in some ways of Deadpool, but not as tastefully done, and times like 5. And if these things were in there for a reason, I can understand an argument for them. Like, you know, we're drawing attention to these issues, or we're trying to illustrate, you know, just how corrupt this person is, etc. But the problem is, most of them did not feel like they were included for any reason other than as an attempt to be edgy versus actually being there for a purpose. They just felt like they wanted to have a shock value. And a lot of the same scenes with the same concepts repeat themselves throughout the series. And that's why I say I don't feel like they were included for anything other than shock and awe. Because after the first rape and sexual assault scene, like, okay, we get it. You're making a commentary about how horrible this is, and we need to make sure that people are comfortable standing up for themselves and etc. And we need to punish people that perpetrate things like this, because it's terrible that it happens to people. It's terrible overall. But then they keep repeating this stuff. You know what I mean? And at that point, you're not doing it to promote a message, you're doing it for the shock value. Like, wow, this series is so edgy. And that's not necessary, and that's excessive. I will say that something I did like about this series as well is there are parts of this that are truly very funny. It's definitely a dark comedy. There are scenes that are very, very humorous. My favorite character ended up being Black Noir. I ended up loving Black Noir. Every scene Black Noir was in, I found hilarious. And like I said, there are some things this show really does well. I think it does a great job with commentary on things like the power corporations have in our world. Honestly, which I'm very surprised to see Amazon greenlight for their Prime holders, to be absolutely frank. Because, I mean, hello, zero tax dollars paid, Amazon, giant corporate entity. The show also does a really good job, I think, at addressing questions people have with morality and religion and exploring what would happen where a superhero isn't actually that super, and the role of how supervillains are created, and the role of like the normal person who's trying to just survive all of this and their collateral damage. But overall, I have to admit, I don't like this series. I think it had a lot of potential, but so far the execution leaves a lot to be desired. And the worst for me is that the devolution into focus on drama in the last few episodes just to build up interest for season 2 really just left a bad taste in my mouth. Because all that ambiguity from the drama is what they rely on to get you to come back for a second season. And that's why I'm not interested anymore. Because I hate dramas like this. This is also why I hate romantic comedies. Anything that just relies on the drama and shock value just leaves me absolutely uninterested. For me to be invested in a series, I need good writing, I need good character development, and I need that to continue. And this series started off strong, and around episode 4, which is around halfway into the series, it just kind of went downhill. And like I said, it just started focusing on drama. Overall, my final rating for the first season of The Boys is, yeah, it could use more bacon. If you're interested in this concept and you want to see a different take with a corporate entity interacting with corrupted superheroes, that is really where this season does a great job. If you do not like drama or drama TV shows, by the end of the series, I'm warning you, you may not be enjoying it as much, because that is certainly the position that I'm in. What did you guys think about this series? Have you seen this yet? Or are you planning on watching it? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are and who ended up being your favorite character. Like, mine is seriously Black Noir. And I don't know if that's a bad thing. Maybe it's because he's not on the screen enough to like be ruined. I don't know. But let me know in the comments below. I hope you're all doing amazingly, and I will catch you later.